And we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of Solo TV 84. I'm your gracious host, Solomon Jones. Now, the person next to me, you may have already seen him on Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Joe Rogan. Yeah, we definitely going to talk about that Joe Rogan interview. Facts. You've seen him with 50 Cent, Carmelo Anthony. He's done, over 20 startups, as well as consolidative work for other people on the low. Hotep Jesus, everybody. Hotep, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Thank you for having me. Great pleasure to be here talking to you tonight, man.
Hey, that's what's up. Hey, Hotep, to the people that may not know you, I mean, I think I gave a pretty decent intro about some of the things, but tell the people what else you do that I didn't mention. I mean, you're an author as well. Tell the people what else you do, fam.
I'm a rebel. I find ways to disrupt conversations and industries to force people to think differently or to question the norm or to question the mainstream. In many ways, I can be seen as a philosopher, a thought leader. Some people might say free thinker. I don't know what those words are these days, but I like to take some of my skills, such as marketing, which is my professional background, and use my superpowers for the good of all mankind, right? So I have these, like, one of my superpowers is reading people. Reading people is my superpower. Their body language, their speech, and several other factors, and then using that to create peace between people. Some of my innate powers, some of my learned powers, like digital marketing, social media prowess, all that stuff. I've been in tech, my whole life, going back to like the 80s when we had a Commodore 64. I was living in Newark. We had a Commodore 64. We had a PC. We had CD burners when they first came out. We had TVs in the car when they first came out. I just always been on the cusp of technology and just being right there when AOL first hit. I built my first website in like 1996 or something like that, or 97.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I taught myself HTML. My dad went to Barnes & Noble, got me an HTML book. And, I've been in tech my whole life. I didn't like the technical side of things like coding and so forth. My brother was a coder. So, I prefer to be in the people business, talking to people and managing communities and figuring out how to bring people together. That always intrigued me more, was how to bring people together, right? That's something I just always loved. And, today with Hotep Nation, I finally am able to use that power and bring a lot of people together under this name, Hotep.
And also you have a clothing brand. I forgot that, man. Brother, what don't you do? Do you sell toothpaste?
Not yet. There's a great sister on the internet that her name is Me Naturals. Right. And she doesn't even call it toothpaste. She calls it teeth paste because tooth would be one tooth. So she calls it teeth paste, to be kind of funny. But I like to not compete with people I know. But she has a great toothpaste out there. So if somebody's interested in some teeth paste, check out Me Naturals.
Okay, dope. Now, Hotep, a lot of people, they know the story of your name, right? The origin story, but we can talk about that. But one of the things that I like that you've mentioned before,
there's a great sister on the internet that her name is Me Naturals, and she doesn't even call it.
Is that me or
that's you? You got to turn to YouTube.
Hold on one second. Where's this coming from?
But I like to not compete with people.
Okay, all right. I thought I was going crazy for a second. Okay. so like I was saying, and shout out to Donovan Sharp, because I saw you in Donovan's interview, and then also, like I said, we're going to talk about some of your classics, because that Joe Rogan, boy, you triggered a lot of people. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, I've heard you mention that you were tired of being a victim, right?
Yeah.
And, you were tired of being a victim, and you were looking for some way to be successful, or some way to pursue your purpose. When you mentioned victim, right? What did you mean? A victim as in being a loser in a sense, or a victim as in, oh, I'm just a black man and nobody's cutting me a break? Like, what do you mean when you use the word victim?
Yeah, I like that you use the word loser, because
Okay.
that's pretty much what it is. Like Scott Adams says, loser think, right? Like you think like a loser instead of thinking like a winner. So I always go back to my own personal situation when things were looking bleak for my future. And then there was a turning point where I said, any and everything around me that is not as I would like it to be is my fault. And I put it there. So if anybody's going to remove it and make my situation better, then it has to be me. So I carried that take on to the macro level and say, well, if a group of people are dealing with problems, then the people who have created those problems obviously aren't going to solve them because they created them for a reason. So it would be the onus would be on the people that are the victim of these problems to come up with some solutions and figure out how to get out of this. So that's more of a thinker mentality where you say everything is my fault. And that's what I teach my kids, no matter what happens to you anywhere in life, it's your fault. There are things you could have done to mitigate those risks. And once you have that mentality, it gives you all the power. When you say something is somebody else's fault, then they must have power over you. That's their power to push their will on you. But if they do something to you and say that was my fault, well, you keep the power. And I like power, and I like having my own power, and I like being sovereign, and I like just saying I'm responsible for my future. And when I took that attitude on, everything in my life changed, and it was just an upward trajectory from there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I do is, I talk about a lot about self-improvement here because we live in an era now where, masculinity is being attacked, right? Now they have toxic masculinity and all these terms to shame men. And yeah, this is not a politically correct channel either, brother. So, we already know. But when I look at it and whatnot, I do see that now in modern times, when you look at the sexual dynamics or the social dynamics in regards to dating, marriage and whatnot, it's messed up. Obviously, we're dealing with the whole beer flu situation. But even before that, right, you had the Me Too situation. And it just seems like, okay, we're going to blame everything on men and women are going to be the victims here, right? And it's come to the point then these same women who are complaining about, oh, no, we don't want men to approach us, for example, with Me Too, right? Then they were complaining in the workplace that, oh, well, men aren't talking to us anymore. Yeah, well, yeah, because we don't want to lose our jobs, So I think that now we're in a space, especially when we talk about red pill, where men are seeing what's going on and they're tired of it, and we're speaking out against it. Do you think, Hotep, when I talk about this attack on masculinity, is that a reach? And from what you've gathered, why do you think they are attacking masculinity?
Again, that's something I would put on men. I would say that's our fault that the world exists as it is today. Obviously, our masculinity has failed us if masculinity is under attack. Now, masculinity is going to be under attack because we are the protectors of the family or the protectors of the community and the nation and the world at large, the greater world. So that's why they want to get us out the paint. They want to get alphas and masculine men out of the paint. So the state can come in and play father and play husband to the spouse so that everyone worships the state. This is the end goal of socialism, which is communism. And I say men have to do a better job being men. And then that will thwart this problem. But I wouldn't complain about how women are acting at these places. I think they should be completely and wholly ignored, when they play these silly games. There's several, like when I said that, my brain went like 3 different ways. And now I'm like sorting like, okay, which stream of consciousness do I go down, right? Because it's like one stream of consciousness is telling me they shouldn't be in the workplace anyway, right? like we've failed as men that women can't stay home and take care of the babies, right? So, and there's a lot of propaganda that came down the pike that convinced women that they should be in the workplace and they're proud of themselves in the workplace. And there's we're in a modern world, so I don't think that women should, if they want to work, I think they should definitely want to work. But I think there's a lot of propaganda put in place that that pushed women into the workplace, such as Edward Bernays convincing women they should smoke cigarettes, right, with his campaign ad. But yeah, I just blame us, man. I just say, we got to do better. We got to set a better example of what masculinity is, because if we feed into it, that's basically feminine energy. If we feed into this attack on us, that's just very feminine to complain about these problems, right? It's one thing to highlight them, but we have to also be ready to provide those solutions. And I think that's just about uh, demonstrating what it's like to be a man. So people who don't have good masculinity in their lives see us examples like we are right now on the YouTubes, right? So they can see us and see how we think and operate in this world, and they can mimic that. And then also it's the kids, right? They can see and they can mimic in case they don't have a masculine body or person in their lives. But it's about how we operate. It's about what we create and how we insulate ourselves from this propaganda machine. And I think we've gotten so comfortable on Sundays watching football that we didn't pay attention to some of these things when we had the warning signs early on. I mean, Neely Fuller was teaching this in the 70s. Dr. Cress Wilson was teaching this in the 80s. So, when I read the ISIS papers, I think it was maybe 90s, I read the ISIS papers. And so I was hip to the, eventually in the future, men would be wearing dresses, right? Like that was in the 90s, I was studying this. So when this stuff manifests now and people are talking about it, I'm kind of jaded and bored of the topic. I'm like, yo, we was telling y'all about this like 10 years ago and y'all told us we was crazy and now it's here. And it's just like, I'm thinking crypto and AI. I'm not even thinking about this topic anymore because like we saw it coming, right? And that's the problem. We spent too much time, us men, in leisure and not in fixing the world around us to where now we are victims of the world around us. So we have to take that power back.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. I think that one of the things that I try to preach and I always talk about is I have a series called Don't Be Bitter, Be Better.
Yeah.
And in that series, we're up to like 5 or 6 parts now. And I just talk about how we as men, if you want, it's like Gandhi said, man, be the change in the world you want to see. The world isn't going to change because you close your eyes and then you open it up and it's going to change. You got to have a plan. And I think that a lot of men, we've become complacent in having this victim, you know what I mean? Unless there's going to be something done. And when I say something done, I'm talking about for you individually. You know what I mean? Because when I hear you, you always mention that you kind of, before you blew up, you went through like a spiritual rebirth of sorts, right?
Yeah.
And where you went to like a Zen type state. And I guess, and by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot I had the Becky in the background.
Nah, she good. Let her stay right there.
She's actually Asian. But let me ask you this. When you went through that, I don't know what you call it, if you call it a spiritual rebirth or a spiritual awakening, right?
I like that.
Use that word. Were you looking for answers like spiritually as well? Or how did you get to that point? Because I feel like for example, and I'm not trying to keep talking because I know I'm long-winded, but I kind of went through my own little spiritual reawakening, and it happened because of NoFap and semen retention of all things. Like imagine not clapping cheeks made me more spiritually in tune and aware of my surroundings and aware of my thought process that I never even thought. It's crazy. But how did you go through your spiritual growth or rebirth, I guess?
Yeah, I love that you talked about NoFap because the building of discipline is the foundation of spirituality. That discipline to deny yourself these desires, right? And some desires are healthy and some desires are not. And I think we have to identify what's an unhealthy desire and what's a healthy desire. And sometimes we have to deny ourselves some of these unhealthy desires. I mean, it's good to have them sometimes, but sometimes we have to have that ability to say, no, I don't need that. What I need is, a set of push-ups or something like that, right? Or a glass of water. That's that discipline that you really start to connect with your inner self. But I like you said, rebirth. I like that word, spiritual rebirth, because that's exactly what it was. I was becoming a new me. But yeah, I was looking for answers, and I started studying, and I started diving into a lot of different subjects and spiritual pathways and information and esoterics and symbolism and meditation and breathing and visualization. And, it came at a point in my life where I had ascended physically. The 50 Cent thing happened. So my material life was 10 times better. But my soul was dying. It was like, like a lot of people go into the hip hop industry and then they say like afterwards they leave and they become Christian and Muslim and whatnot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's what happened to me. Like it was just so grimy and so fake. It disgusted me. So like it really just had me feeling like very alone. I felt very, very alone when I'd go into these spaces and I would see like snakes all around me and horns, right? Symbolically, obviously, not physically. Like literally didn't see them, but I just felt like I was just in a space where I just, people couldn't be trusted. I'm like,
With fake friends, frenemies.
yeah, just everybody was just really fake. It's like everybody was just talking to me because I was the guy that was the marketing director for a 50 Cent brand, right? And just like a year ago, nobody even paid me any attention, in this space. I had my own like fan base in Jersey, but like in New York, I remember talking to this one radio show and we were like, hey, I'm a starving artist out here, you know what I mean? And I want to get on your radio show. And I think it was called Bad Girl Radio or something like that at the time. And they like completely like igged me. Then I got the job with 50 and they hit me up for a sponsorship. And it was just like, what? Like, like you denied me a year ago. Now you see the come up and now you want to hop back on. It's just like, it don't work like that. But I don't know. And then also like I hated white people. I had this like disdain for white people. But in working with 50, I met a lot of really dope white people. And like Kathy Delaney, this older white woman. She was probably like in her 60s. And I just really fell in love with her as a person. She was my boss, C-level exec, and her energy and her vibe was just so beautiful. And I just enjoyed being around her. And Alix, another older white woman. And I was just falling in love with these like older white women who just carried themselves a certain way. But even though I didn't have that formal, Ivy League training like everybody else in the office, they gave me the most respect because I had that real life experience. My disdain for whites, I found out was hurting me. So I had to like release that. So the more I got into spirituality, the more I realized that in order to ascend, you got to fill your body with love and learn how to love people. And it brought me back to like, that's what Jesus teaches, right? It's like, forgive thy enemy, and present yourself with love. And what I realized is in doing that, it wasn't even about them. It was more about like replenishing myself. And I felt powerful and I felt free. And I felt light. And I'm like, wow, I don't hate white people anymore. And then here we are, you fast forward and I'm working with them and side by side. And white people are Hoteps, which is something that would be unthought of. Like if you would have said, yo, you're going to lead a movement for black people with white people, I'd have been like, yo, you're crazy. That doesn't even make any sense. A pro-black movement with white folks that's genuine, not like Black Lives Matter, genuine for the people, grassroots, organic, but it's happening, right? And it's because some people like 50 Cent, I was at dinner one time, he called me a genius. And it's a lot of people like, oh, you're a genius, you're a genius. And I was thinking about that thought today because somebody else called me a genius. And I was like, I don't think I'm a genius. What I think I am is a reincarnated ascended master. Whoever I was in my past life had really understood this earth because I think I have a very unfair advantage over others of how well I'm able to see and understand this earth and our times and people. So I don't know if it's definitely not. There is some intellectual aspect to it all, but I think my superpower is my connection to my soul.
Mm. It's man, you just said so much that I want to unpack.
I know.
One thing, because like I said, I mean, I saw you on Donovan's channel recently. Salute him, and then of course I'm also a co-host of formerly as the 7, now the 6, right? And it's like just listening to you, like your vibe, like when I do interviews, I'm like, if you can see me, like I got like 5 screens. I'm trying to multitask because it's a one-man show. I'm trying to multitask all at once. I'm trying to pay attention. So it's like I'm all over the place, right? But just listening to you, like you're very present in the moment, and I can tell, like when you talk, you really think about what you're about to say. Like I'm the type of dude, I'll say something crazy, and then cats in the chat be like, "Yo, Solo, pause."
Yeah.
And then I got to bring it back. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like I can just tell, like you very aware, and I think that's the first thing about. I don't want to use the word woke, but being present
Yes.
is being in the moment. Because a lot of
Yes.
people are either thinking ahead or they're thinking in the past, but they're never in the moment, realizing
Yeah.
that the most important time is right now. Not to sound cliche, but it's true. And if you're
Yeah.
letting something from your past occupy you constantly, then you're giving energy to something that already happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I read this book years ago called I think The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty decent read. In hindsight, it's probably too basic for me now. And I would reword a lot of what he said. But I think for somebody who just wants to get into it, it's a great, fabulous read. I think it leaves off a lot, though, to be desired, but monumental in transforming me and my paying attention to the present moment. I mean, it's probably, I would suggest it as a must read for anybody who doesn't understand the idea of being in the present moment. But you're right. I used to be that guy who would talk and think about it later, and it got me into a lot of trouble. So, learning how to have presence and when you're asking me questions, like being in the moment and absorbing everything you're saying, and then and then opening my mind to receive thoughts
Right.
from the outerverse, so that I'm not thinking, I'm just opening up a channel that communicates with my intellectual mind, and then my intellectual mind tells me how to communicate those thoughts.
That's dope. That's dope. One of the things that I like is in your story about how you met 50 Cent, right? Because I did my research on your dog, like I always do, right? Yeah, we did the research. But you mentioned that you weren't even a G Unit fan, but you used to have the 50 Cent poster up in your room, like a big poster, and then that went from seeing that poster. Now you're not just meeting 50 on the bus, but you're working with 50 and whatnot. Visualization.
That's the power of visualization, and I understood that at the time. I saw the poster, and my roommates at the time, they were like, "Oh, that's gay. You got a man on your door." Da 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 da. And I don't think they got it, but it was a G Unit poster, and they had stacks of money on their desk. And like I said, I wasn't a G Unit fan, but I could appreciate 50 Cent's rise to the top that happened so quickly, but yet so organically. And some of the chess moves he played with Ja Rule, I just really appreciated that art of war and that 48 laws of power he brought to the table. So I was appreciating it. And I bought that poster and I said, I'm going to use this to visualize my dreams. I didn't realize I was manifesting working with 50 Cent. I was just worried about the stacks of paper on the desk and the guns. Like I enjoy guns. So they had guns and stacks of paper. And I'm like, that's what it's all about. Guns and butter right there. So I put that on my door. And then I did a couple of things. I remember when 50 Cent released his book, The 50th Law. The day of the release, I drove to Barnes & Noble. I picked up a copy. I took a picture and wrote a blog about it. And then that hit his website. And I was featured on the front page of his website. So I was like, I ran a blog at the time. We were doing millions of hits. I had a staff of 7 people. And so I knew how to like hijack social media and being on the pulse and knowing that you got to move fast. Like when you get these ideas, you got to act on them. If they're ideas you can act on right away, you got to act on them because these ideas are gifts from God. And when you procrastinate, you actually take it out of sequence of your destiny. So if the idea comes and it's something you can act on, and if you delay like an hour, you move it out of sequence of your destiny to where you are now going down a different pathway of your destiny when this one could have led to a whole bunch of different events. For example, yesterday I was reading some anarchy work, and my mind told me, my intuition told me, check the Clubhouse app for some interesting conversations. So I'm on the computer, I'm reading the book, and then I hop into the voice chat app, and then they're talking about Dr. Sebi. I think I got a notification that said Dr. Sebi. So I was like, let me hop in his chat. And I hopped in the chat and the brother brought up Lupe Fiasco. And he said Lupe Fiasco would definitely debate on this vaccine topic. So I went to the Twitter and I tweeted to him and I said, hey, would you be open to debate? And he said, and then today he replied, yes. So I'll be debating Lupe Fiasco on my channel Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. But had I ignored that intuitive thought, because the logical mind would say, no, I'm reading right now, right? Why would I stop reading this material and go waste time, right? Because the intellectual mind would tell you being on this app talking to complete strangers might be a waste of time. But Willow Smith said something very interesting. Very at a very young age when they had their Misfits. I used to watch their Misfits gatherings. And she said, I could be anywhere. I could be over there, but I'm not over there. I'm right here. And everything else doesn't matter. The fact that I'm right here, right now, speaking in this moment is what matters. Not the fact that I'm across the street, but I'm right here, right now. And that's important. I mean, I could be doing a million things, but I'm not. I'm doing this right now. And it got me thinking about prioritization. Sometimes we like to prioritize too much. I think prioritizing is important, but sometimes we prioritize too much and think that things that are wasting our time are actually good. Conferencing with other people is actually good and it's not wasting time. But again, the point I'm trying to make is the thought to check Clubhouse was definitely more intuitive than it was intellectual, because had I listened to my intellectual mind, I'd still be reading that book and I won't have a debate scheduled with Lupe Fiasco on Wednesday. But instead, I listened to my intuition. So the same thing happened with the 50 Cent thing. They announced, I saw it came down the wire that he had an energy drink. So I was the first publication to cover the energy drink, tagged him and everything. So I got invited to the launch of that, the bus launch. And I remember barely being able to afford to get there. But I got there, got on the bus. I remember trying to sit up front, and then the security moved me to the back. He said, nah, this is where 50 going to sit. And I said, all right, I'll move to the back. So I moved to the back. 50 gets on the bus pulls off, and it's just like eerily quiet in New York City, though. So we hear the city, but the bus just, everybody's like stiff, right? Because I guess 50 is on the bus now. So everybody's like nervous. But I'm nervous because I'm like, why ain't nobody moving? Like, where's the vibe in here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's the vibe at? So we pull off and then we stop at the light, and I see these people on my right. And then the intuition, like, yo, you got to hop up and say something. You got to wild out. Keep in mind, I'm a touring artist at this time. So I'm used to being an MC, a master of ceremonies. My intellectual mind is like, yo, you're going to get kicked off the bus. You better chill out. You know, you be bugging sometimes. My intuition was like, nigga, you broke. You ain't got one chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Yo, you better lose yourself. You know that song by Eminem?
Yeah, facts.
So that's in my head. And I'm like, fuck it, we're going to take a chance, right? Life is all about risk. So I'm like, yeah, I'm on a bus with 50 Cent. So then somebody was like, yeah, right. I'm like, I'm serious. He's right here. Look at him. And the video's on YouTube. Y'all can watch it. So sure enough, the people rush the bus and 50 stands up and he starts giving out energy drinks. Now there's 2 marketing companies on this bus, actually 3. It's the launch brand, it's 50's team, and then the execution for the actual bus. So there's 3 marketing companies. So like everybody's rushing me with business cards because like who's this guy that has the balls to just do this on 50's bus? They throw the shirt on me, they throw the hat on me. So now, and then they move me to the front of the bus. So now it's me and 50, and I'm not an MC for the whole thing. Then they invite me. They had a follow-up party that night. So I go to that party. I got stupid drunk. Angela Simmons is in the building, like mad stars in the building. Omarion's in there. I'm up there bugging out with Omarion. He was cool as hell. Probably the coolest celebrities I ever met. We was just kicking it. You know what I mean? And then I followed up, and then they invited me to come out to Chicago to do an event. So I emceed that event. And after I emceed that event, we went to dinner, and that's when 50 said I was a genius. And then the people was like, "Yo, you want a job?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" So they was like, "Yo, come up with a marketing plan." So I came up with a marketing plan and I presented it. Now, keep in mind, before I had the marketing plan, I had got promo materials from them. I had hit Occupy Wall Street. So I hit Occupy Wall Street with a street team, just straight up all my little homies from around the way. So they was all dressed in the brand. I had got the brand in front of Russell Simmons because he was at Occupy Wall Street. So when I showed up with my presentation, I had pictures of Russell Simmons wearing their gear, holding their gear up. So they like, yo, he's already executing on the marketing plan. When they saw when they saw the marketing plan, they were like, whoa, like this is just, we need to like do this now. So I remember walking in the office at like 8, 9 a.m. or whatever it was. And I didn't leave till like 10 that night.
Yeah.
They were like,
this was during the Occupy Wall Street era, like you said.
Yeah.
And you were hitting the streets with everything.
Yeah,
Like,
I was
like
hitting
that,
Occupy Wall
like
Street. Yeah,
wow.
with the energy drinks and everything, because it's Occupy, you know what I'm saying? Them
Right.
people need to stay up all night. So I was hitting them with the energy drinks and the shirts or whatever. So yeah, so that day I walked in thinking I was gonna do an interview and go home. Nah, I stayed there the whole day and I just was, working with the company as a consultant for the next 2 years. And then I realized I could do more. So that's when I launched the sports drink brand with Carmelo Anthony. We did a Dwayne Reed execution. And then I very quickly found out about this whole like iPhone thing and the iPhone app store. And I'm like, yo, like the future is in these apps. So I would bring it to like some of the people that was working with 50 and, not G Unit, but like the company I was working for, which was separate from 50.
Chris
And
Light.
nah, not Violator. Shout out to Chris
Yeah.
Lighty. Chris Lighty's really the man that got me hired. He's the one that said, yo, put him on squad.
Right.
So RIP to Chris Lighty. I owe him my life. But yeah, so I was, telling people, I was having consultations and nobody got the mobile app space. So I started applying for jobs in the mobile app space because I had all this know-how. And then I remember I went and got this interview and with a mobile app company. It was called Inbox, and they were like a messaging app with a lot of cool features like doodling and whatnot. And I didn't get the job, but I knew I didn't get a job because I didn't know what the hell the guy was asking me. He's asking me all these technical terms I had never heard of. So I came from a traditional marketing background, experiential marketing background, and social media. I knew nothing about app store optimization and all the things that went into digital marketing. So I spent the next year studying. Like I've never in my life went to an interview and didn't get the job. So this was really rejecting from me. But again, like not saying, oh, I didn't get the job because I'm black with dreads and da da da. I was like, no, I didn't know the answer to these questions. So I studied for the next year. And then I started getting a lot of gigs. I was working with like maybe 2 or 3 startups at the same time. One as an employee and then one as a consultant, and just really hustling to make ends meet, and making fairly good money. But I was spending a lot of time and I didn't like that. And not only was spending a lot of time, and I wasn't getting no equity in these companies and they weren't listening. So it was like, which actually I should just tell this story now. So I was working with this one gaming app company. And I was, marketing director. I was making like, I think we negotiated a salary of $70,000 a year and working out of New York. And I was head of growth. And I was telling the dude like, yo, your Facebook pixels aren't connected. We got to fix those. And they were like shoving me off and like, nah, just, keep running the ad campaign. So we were spending $2,500, sometimes $25,000 a day on Facebook ads. And I would keep tracking a spreadsheet, and the ROI was like -97. At one point, I'm 99. I got it down to like -97. Some campaigns -90, but still, that's a terrible ROI on these campaigns when you're spending so much money. So I'm asking these people like, yo, we got to fix these Facebook pixels, and they're ignoring me. So I, in corporate America, you got to put things in writing. So I put things in writing, and they ignored me again. So the final app version finally gets pushed out because they said, we'll just do it in the next app version. We'll push it out because I guess it was some big thing for them to push out a new version of the app. So they pushed it out, and then sales skyrocketed overnight. ROI was like 400% on the campaign. So I walk into work the next day thinking like I'm the man. So I walk in and they're like, yo, what happened? And I'm like, yo, y'all installed the Facebook pixels. So they're like, no, that can't be it. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's exactly why. Like, this is how this digital marketing thing works. Like, I've been studying, I've been doing this for years. Like, this is what happens. So I realized, like, all right, I can't be doing this no more because that's the second time that happened to me where I said something would happen, it happened, and they told me I was wrong, even though I was right. So I said, from now on, I'm going to just take equity in companies. So I started switching to is the equity mindset. You can keep your salary. I know how to make money. Keep your salary. I'll make money. And let's build a company, because I realize people take you a lot more serious when you own a piece of the company as opposed to just being an employee, right? The whole mindset switches because you're now their partner. So now I only work with co-founders. So the funny thing is, one of the first companies I took equity in was coinbitsapp.com, and that's the crypto company, right? We sell Bitcoin. The job that I didn't get was run by that same dude, Maher.
Dang.
When he had his app store optimization guy interview me, and I got dejected. Here we are years later that I end up working with him. But it was because of years of study and years of experience. So while I sat down and had a talk with him, I knew those questions to the answers. And not only did I know them, I had published books on it, right? And was an authority on this, So then everything just, kind of coalesced into this beautiful tech angel investing type deal.
Okay. Let's get into that. Before we do, welcome to Solo TV 84, everybody. We got Hotep Jesus in the building. Shout out to Sydney Midtown. He says, now this is a duo fire. Massive respect to both of you gentlemen with the $5 Australian bucks. We appreciate that. Please hit the like button, y'all. We appreciate Hotep coming through. He's, you guys know him from the Starbucks viral video to 50 Cent to Joe Rogan. That's what you know him for. But, isn't it funny that you're known, and this is for anybody, right? You're known for your most sensational maybe moments, but what you really do, people seldom talk about. Does that bother you? It used to bother me, but then I'm like, you know what? If somebody really rocks with me, they're going to know what Solo TV 84 really does.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's the great mindset. For example, when I first pulled the Starbucks stunt, people said I should, continue to do that across the nation and continue to pull these stunts in various different settings. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that because that will become my brand. And I don't want that to be my brand. I did the stunt. I made Fox News. I went viral. Vice picked it up. Everybody picked it up. So, Alex Jones picked it up. So the job was done. I didn't need to brand myself anymore as that guy. The mission was accomplished, and now it was just about, okay, I captured these 50,000 people that came in. It's like, now let me show them who I am. And then after the Joe Rogan interview, somebody did a piece on Joe Rogan, and they described me as an intellectual, and I said, good, that's exactly how I want people to perceive me, as an intellectual. Do not perceive me as a troll or performance artist. Although I can do those things very well, and I can play those roles very well, that's not exactly why I play those roles really well. It's because I take myself as an intellectual, So so I'm specific to brand myself, and people say, oh, you're a marketing master, da da da. And I'm like, no, technically I'm a branding master, and branding is really what you want. Marketing is the product, but branding is the reputation of that product. And that's really what I'm concerned with, is the reputation and what I'm known for.
Man, like I said, I got so many questions for you now. I might have to save them for the second interview, though.
We could do a part two.
We're running short on the questions, but on time. But let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this topic, is cryptocurrency. I was telling you my story in the back. I used to have these open panels on my channel, right? And I still do from time to time. It's just that when you get too many niggas on, they start doing a lot of nigga shit. So, I try to minimize that. You feel me?
Yeah.
So, but one brother in late 2016 kept talking about cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And Hotep, every time he talked about crypto, was like, whoosh, it was going over my head. It's like, this dude was talking about coins, but it's not really coins, but it's stored on the internet, some type of digital wallet. It sounded like a B movie or something. It sounded really bad.
Yeah.
So, and shout out to that brother, man. Salute to him. I forgot his name. He doesn't YouTube much anymore. SPI Hybrid. Yeah, shout out to him. He's the one that I heard it from first. And so then early 2017, I have a group of friends. These are young, successful brothers. You know what I mean? One brother worked for IBM. Another brother worked for like an oil company. And like, these are brothers that I have a lot of respect for, especially when it comes to, business advice and investing and stuff like that, because I see how they grind. I see they hustle. And then one of the brothers was like, yo, Solo, you sleeping. You got to get on this crypto, this Bitcoin. It's making waves. And I'm like, wait, that's the thing that dude was talking about on my channel, but it sounded like a scam. So you know what I did, Hotep? I said, let me educate myself on this, because I didn't understand it. So I sat down, and this brother had a blog. Shout out to him, Ian Bellina. In the blog, he broke down what blockchain is, how the white papers came to be with Bitcoin in 2009, all of that, what the the technology is, the value, right? All of this. And the way he broke it down was so simple. Even a guy like me with a low IQ could understand. You feel me? Like, I couldn't get that. And so then I started to do more research on this. And I'm like, yo, how come nobody's talking about this? And sure enough, anybody who's been watching me since 2017, the more I talked about crypto, I was showing brothers how to buy it. Then I moved, I started on Coinbase like everybody else. Then I moved to, Binance and Qcoin, all of that. But crypto kept rising and rising. Then it was in the news. How did you hear about cryptocurrency, and what made you decide, yo, this is the wave, or this is something that I want to hop on or hop into?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest life mistakes. Is I knew about Bitcoin when it first started.
Like
And
2009?
yeah, like super early. I want to say more maybe 2012. I would say really 2012, 2013 was when I probably became hip to Bitcoin. So very early on. And people were telling me to get in. And I was like, man, the bankers are going to kill this. There's no way they're going to let this thing happen. And in some ways I was right, because like Binance, like I got a email today from Binance that said I have to close my account because I'm in the US, right? And it's because they left because of all the regulations. They didn't want to pay the fees that come along with licensing in this country. But still the price went up, right? So I was wrong in the fact that I should have invested early, because I'd be, tens of millions and sitting in my bank account at this point, if not more, hundreds of millions, whatever. So I was ignorant in that sense. And this part of
not to cut you off, but I have to real quick. Were you did you not jump on it because you didn't understand it? Because for lack of knowledge, my people perish, right? That was me. I didn't get it. Or did you not jump on it because
I didn't jump into mining because I didn't understand mining, and there wasn't a lot of information out there back then in mining. So I didn't jump into mining because I didn't understand it, but I didn't jump on this thing just because of pure skepticism. I understood what they were trying to do. I mean, I was following Alex Jones, so I knew there's a one world currency, digital currency coming, and I saw it as that too. But I just was like, this thing is just a fad, and the SEC is just going to knock this thing out. So why even bother, right? But yeah, that, it wasn't because I didn't understand it. I mean, compared to my understanding of blockchain and crypto now, I didn't understand it then. Like, I understand a lot of this technology now from being in the industry and hosting a ton of debates and studying a little bit. But so 2017, I want to say, was the big run up. So I got in, and the way I got in was different. Like, a lot of people were telling their friends to get in. I was more or less tweeting like, yo, I'm in. If y'all not in, I don't know what's wrong with y'all, but I'm in the game, right? And I'm just kind of like bragging about my experience with it. But I wasn't really out there like pushing any particular brands. And I was in a student phase. I mean, I was asking people like, hey, where can I track prices? What's the best wallet? What's this? What's that? And I had maybe 2 or 3 people around me that was answering some questions for me. And I just, plugged their brain. And then there was Thanksgiving time. I remember I was chilling with the fam, and my homie, he's like, yo, you heard about this Bitcoin thing? And I looked at him like, because he's not the type to be up on stuff. I'm up on stuff like a few years ahead of most people. So I saw him up on it, and I'm like, yeah, how'd you hear about it? He was like, yo, because you got to keep in mind, I had bought early in 2017, and I was buying still. So I got in pretty early on the boom, on the rise up. So I made a nice, pretty piece of change. But he's like, yo, I heard about it at the barbershop. I was like, barbershop? Man, that's when I went to Twitter, and I was like, yo, I think I'm ready to sell. People are like, no, it's still too early. It's going to go up. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, nah, I think it's bubble time. Because if the barbershop talking about it, that means, the average everyday consumers talk about it. That means this thing is over. So sure enough, the next year that thing crashed, and I was like, I'm glad I sold the bulk of my gains, and I pretty much just kept the principal in. And ever since then, I've just been investing with Coinbase app.
Okay, but you're still in the market, obviously, though, in crypto, right?
What do you mean in the market?
I mean, when I say in the market, you still buying crypto or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Coinbase app, you just set it and forget it, right? You just say, hey, take $100 out of my account a week and buy Bitcoin at whatever price it is at that time. And it just, I just set it and forget it. And the money just comes out of my account, and they purchase Bitcoin. And
okay,
I got to back my sats.
I got to check that out. Definitely. And here's the thing about this, right? Because I noticed when at first, initially, Hotep, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, how come nobody's talking about it? And I got excited. Like, ask anybody on my channel. Back then, I was like, you know, when like somebody's got the plug, like you said, you figure out the wave before is really popping, right? And I was like, yo, this is hot. This is hot. So I was telling everybody about it. And I wouldn't do it now, but I was showing brothers how to buy it on Coinbase, man. Like I could have exposed sensitive information. Like I was stupid then, right?
Right.
I guess, you know, Hotep, you have been always one. And one thing I like about you is that you're very unapologetic when you speak about issues, even when people don't agree with you, right? And I know that triggers certain people and whatnot. When you look at cryptocurrency, and it's not just the black people thing.
Can I speak on real fast on why I'm able to stand 10 tones down on what I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because when I speak, it's because it's well thought out. Some people think and tweet, right? I don't think and tweet. I think, and I ponder, and I ask questions, and I research. So when I finally come to a thought that I want to share with the world, man, it's been through the ringer. You know, I really gave it some thought. So when somebody responds with something that's thoughtless, I'm like, man, get out of here, yo. You didn't even think about what I just said. It took me a year to formulate this thought, and you're gonna tell me I'm wrong in 60 seconds, right? And then not even support your argument. You know, it's different when you have a counter argument. Because, for example, you know, I was at one point I didn't understand anarchy, and you know, Chad Lemoyne was like, "Yo, you gotta check out this anarchy thing," and I'm like, "Yo, I don't know, yo, that don't quite jive with me. I can't envision it. I don't think that makes sense." And then he started handing me material to read, so I looked into it, and I'm like, yeah, this is it right here. This is where we need to be at, right? You know, but like I said, I didn't jump out the window and say, you know, to hell with anarchy. It's stupid, right? You got to do the investigations before you draw conclusions. My bad. So yeah, what was the question?
Yeah, no. So and that's, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up. The question is, why do you think so many people are dismissive when it comes to crypto, or are not aware of it?
For that exact reason, right? They let that cognitive dissonance just own them, right?
Right.
These preconceived notions, the place. See, people don't want to go to a new place. They want to stay where they are because it's comfortable there. But the unknown is very scary. The dark is very scary. With me, I'm like, what's the next version of me? What's the next level? Right? Like today, my homie saw the Lupe Fiasco thing. He's like, damn, you killing it out here. You winning. And I'm like, yo, if you think this is winning, wait till you see what we about to do next. Right? So it's always about what's the next thing, right? And how do we get higher, and how do we expand our consciousness and our intellect? And people don't have that mindset. So when you present them with something new, no matter what it is, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get stupid out, you know, intelligence in, stupid out, because they never even, you know, took a time to say, hey, okay, show me, right? When somebody, like, for example, like socialism and communism, I'm like, yo, I'll debate anybody in this topic, but you can't find nobody that's a socialist or communist with prominence that'll even take the conversation with me. The leftists won't take conversation with me about Donald Trump. I'm willing to hear your side, and let's walk down that path, because I really want to understand what you people are thinking. And a lot of people just don't have that mindset. So when you present them with something new like crypto, you know, it's just like, well, you know, I buy gold, and what if they turn the power off, and what if aliens come down? It's like they just come up with every excuse not to talk about, you know, which is the same mentality I had in the very beginning, right? Which took me, I had to grow out of that. Like my mentality was, the SEC is not going to allow it to happen, you know? And it's just like, had I been like, you know what, this is kind of cool, let me buy a couple. You know, what does it hurt to throw, you know, $500,000 in this thing? What does it hurt? You know, I'm going to spend it on weed anyway or something else, right? So, you know, that mentality is what's going to hurt a lot of people. What that mentality is going to have people missing out on the future. You know, like I remember the whole Trump thing. Like we was on top of the Trump thing in 2015. Like, yo, that's who I'm fucking with. You know what I mean? That's the presidency I like. And then a lot of people came in at 2016, 2017, 2018, or 2020. And I'm like, yo, you mad late, right? Like, because people aren't keeping their finger on the pulse. And that's what I like to do. I like to keep my finger on the pulse and know exactly, I don't think about, I study history and I study the right now, but I study both of those to project my mind into the future and say, well, if this happened and this is happening, what's going to happen, right? And then I'm like, all right, this is going to happen. Let me see if it's happening right now. And I start Googling, you start seeing people preparing for this particular future, like AI and so forth. And
right.
crypto.
One of the things, and once again, Hotep, I'm so glad you bring this up, because for me, really, when my boys, like I told you, right, these young brothers that are smart, they're now in their early, 32, 33. They're retired right now, Hotep. They don't work.
Right.
And so, like I said, I respect those brothers because I know them before they retired. And so when they told me, yo, research this, I really had to open up my mind and say, okay, I got to read and study this the best way possible. And guess what? Thank God for YouTube, because Hotep, these Negroes don't read. Let's keep it up. They don't read. Most of them don't. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, you don't have to, but it would help.
Yeah.
I think there's like 5 pillars of teaching. It's reading, listening, writing, watching, and then teaching, right? Those are like the 5 pillars of learning. And so you kind of got to do all of them. Some people just read and don't listen to the lectures. I like to do all of them, and some people just suck at reading. So for those people, I say, make an attempt to get better, but don't put a huge emphasis on reading, because we're in an age now where everything's available in audiobook and whatnot and so forth. But
Yeah.
I'm a reader. I like to read.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I encourage reading because, even on my channel, I'll try to read more. But long story short, I really had to immerse myself, Hotep, and study this, right? And what I do then is, I have what's called Crypto Saturdays or Sundays, where once a month or twice a month, I bring on a brother by the name of Lionel, and he's not a fundamentalist. So he comes from crypto from a technical aspect, meaning he reads the charts and graphs, and then he tries to predict where it goes. Where fundamentalists in crypto, they tend to go off more the big news and stuff like that, right? So with that segueing into my question, what do you think is the biggest thing holding cryptocurrency back in regards to the masses using it? I always say it's the adoption process, meaning, remember Joe the plumber? Joe the plumber at his home in Pennsylvania or Iowa being able to use crypto, right? Because let's be honest, for the average person who first hears about it, it may be complicated initially, but now you see, PayPal is getting into it, right? They're selling it now. Heck, on your Cash App, you can buy it. It's easy now. Yeah. So my thing has always been from the beginning, adoption for the regular person to be able to use it. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think the biggest issue is with crypto right now, in your opinion?
So like Maher says, my partner over at Coinbits, he says the great thing about crypto is it's permissionless. I don't need anybody's permission to send money from point A to point B. Whereas if I was to go into the bank or Western Union and say I'm going to send $1 million to such and such, they'll be asking me all these questions, right? And then they have the opportunity to deny that transfer for whatever reason, right? And then, so my point is, I think the biggest hurdle is government, communism, socialism. For the benefit of the welfare of other people, we have to make sure that we put laws in place to monitor these exchanges to keep them in compliance. And really what they're afraid of is competition. If I don't need Western Union to send money from point A to point B, Western Union goes out of business. If I don't need the banks go out of business, right? So that's really what we're dealing with. They're scared of the competition, so they practice crony socialism, and the corporations get with the legislators and pass all these laws because, for example, in order to allow people to have on the keys to their Bitcoin and you're an exchange, you got to pay like $30,000 or whatever, just, and whatever region, like let's say for New York, don't quote me on these numbers, but it's really expensive to get your New York license to exchange Bitcoin. Why do I need a license to be an exchange, right? So imagine if, you know, Tyrone from the hood was able to be a Bitcoin exchange. They don't want that. They don't want people to have that power to be a medium of exchange, right? Because if I can if I can program the tech and set up the technology, I should be able to just launch my brand. And if people trust me as an exchange and I have a reputation of being a good exchange, then I have my brand up. But the government's like, no, we have to look out for the welfare of people. And yes, there are opportunities where people can get got in the crypto space, right? Like we saw with Preview, a whole bunch of companies were practicing a whole lot of bad things, you know? But I think that's where you got to let the free market handle those things and let the reputation of some of these exchanges work. But the great part is if people on their keys and they own their Bitcoin, and it doesn't matter what this exchange does, right? So yeah, I think the biggest hurdle right now is government.
Yeah, and I think also another thing is I guess people are just not that knowledgeable about it. and you know, and that onus is going to be on you. You know what I mean? As an individual. And I always say that because the information has been out there now for a decade now, Hotep. So unless you're living under a rock or somewhere where you just don't have internet, I mean, you should have heard about Bitcoin at least once by now in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people heard about it. They have no idea, you know,
Yeah.
what it's like or anything like that. Like I asked my mom this week, Mom, you want any Bitcoin? No. All right. You know, it's just me testing the waters to see where we are in adoption.
Right.
You know, and yeah, a lot of people just don't get it, man. They just don't get it. They think it's some conspiracy theory type thing or whatever. You know, the media does a good job of smearing Bitcoin, and they like to highlight all the bad things that happen with Bitcoin. You know, like, oh, this woman ran off with $2 million worth of people's, and this ICO ran off with this money. You know, and they hear all those stories, and it's just like, because they're not educated on the topic, they don't understand how rare that is, right? But the media blows that stuff up. So it's all about educating people, which is what I love to do.
Yeah. All right. I got one last question because I know you got to leave. So real quick, Bitcoin has been blowing up. I mean, it was at 15,000 about 2-3 weeks ago. Now it's at 18,000. Let me check my $18,321. I mean, I know that because I watched your show. On one of your predictions, you said it'll hit 25K by the end of the year, which we realistically can still do. Do you still stand by the 25K? Do you want to raise that? Do you want to lower it? Do you see crypto at the end of 2021? And by the way, we're not going to hold you to this prediction. We're just having fun, brother.
I think I said 30K.
You said 30? Okay.
It depends on what interview you watched, right? One I probably said 25, another one I probably said 30. I think the ceiling is probably 30 on this thing. It wouldn't be odd to see 25K, you know? I would, 20 was pretty much the ceiling in 2017, I want to say. So yeah, I think 30K is a honest ceiling.
Okay. And where do you see it, Bitcoin in 2021?
It'll probably crash to 10.
10?
Yeah, it'll probably crash to 10 again and 15 or somewhere around there. I have to look at the chart to really give you a good number.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't speculate. I just always buy. I dollar cost average. That's the best way to get the best price on the thing. Right. You know, trying to predict the market, you're never going to get the best price as someone who dollar cost average.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I totally agree. I think my prediction, if I'm not mistaken, would be that it'll go up to about 20. And that was about early in the summer. Yeah. And I'm thinking buy it. But I think next year we're going to go to 50.
I hope so.
Next year we're going to 50. And then I'm going to have my Columbia yacht party. We're going to have some Colombian chicks in the yacht. We're going to be sipping on some Matais and Capri Suns.
Yeah.
Hotep Jesus, you know.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
It's going to be lit. It's going to be lit.
Word up.
All right. Well, we got Hotep Jesus in the building, and man, appreciate you, brother. And let the people know where they can follow you, where they can find you, and what you. Obviously, you got the Lupe thing next. Can you talk about that real quick as well? What that is about?
Lupe's taking the He's taking the pro-vaccine stance. I'll be taking the anti-vaccine stance, and we'll be debating on youtube.com/Hotep Jesus YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Wednesday night. That's going to be awesome. You can find Hotep Jesus on Twitter mostly. And my website is briansharp.co. If you want to learn more about Hotep Nation, you got to go to hotepnation.com.
Okay. That's what's up. Yeah. And I appreciate you, Hotep, for doing the show once again. You know,
yeah.
On Donovan's channel, saw you there. And then, of course, you were in the 7, and I'm part of the 7 as well. So, or the 6, now known as the 6. So appreciate you jumping on, brother. We definitely got to bring you on again because, bro, I didn't even get to have my questions, man. Like, you know, but we'll do it for another time.
We could do a second one. Let's set up a second one.
Now, I mean, we definitely got to talk about that Joe Rogan, bro, because a lot of people are like, you was on one, man. On that Joe Rogan interview, you just like Joe Rogan's eyes was like, because you just kept. It's like a battle rap. I don't know if you watch battle rap, but you was just punchlines back to back to back. You know, you set up bars, punchlines, and Joe Rogan was like, man, like, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I got real deep on the Joe Rogan interview. Let's part 2. Let's talk on part 2 about that. I'm about to actually talk to Jehudi Ma'ara and train for my interview.
Okay.
So I mean, I train for my debate. I'm talking to my teacher right now. I'm actually looking at my teacher right now, Jehudi Ma'ara. So he's going to be mentally training me for my debate with Lupe on Wednesday. So that's why I'm about to head out now. But we can set up a part 2 to the podcast, get this thing popping. We'll talk Joe Rogan and all of that, and the controversial things I said on that channel. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please hit the